The nicest part is that we had time when there were no charts, so things were starting to open up. Maps were absent. Robert Plant decided in 1980 that cost him $800 million. He turned down the largest deal in the history of music. Many supporters are still unaware of the true cause. However, such choice was only the beginning of a secret-filled life. A prohibited liaison with the sister of his ex-wife, a son he hardly discusses, and a pattern of losing all of the people he has ever loved. At 77 years old, with memories too traumatic to reveal, Plant lives alone. The rock legend's life, right now, isn't just depressing, it's nearly unbelievable. Growing up, Robert Plant experienced a world that was both stable and unpredictable. His dad, Robert C. Plant, was a licensed civil engineer who had experience with significant projects, such as constructing runways during the family lived in West Bromwich during World War II and aimed for middle-class status. Solace, but they weren't really at home there. His mother, Annie Celia Kane, was the source of the actual stress. Of Romani heritage, Plant inherited a feeling of mysticism, folklore, and the nomadic nature of strangers. It contrasted sharply with his father's structured, blueprint-based universe. Living in the Black Country, it felt harsh and gray, named for the smoke and soot that hung in the air from heavy industries. The origins of his mother provided him with a new, colorful, and imaginative universe that influenced his songs later on with themes of magic and myth. Being torn between those two worlds as a child led to his early struggles were defining. Growing up, the conflict between his parents got more difficult to overlook. His father wished that he would choose a safe route and become a chartered accountant, the pinnacle of acceptability in post-war Britain. For Robert C. Plant, who had put in a lot of effort to advance in his career, the notion of it was quite disheartening that his son left this dream. However, Robert had previously discovered another item that engulfed him. He had learned about the blues' unadulterated power and emotional integrity via musicians such as Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, and Sonny Boy Williamson too. The songs expressed his own feelings of anguish and longing. Deep down, despite the fact that he had been raised in a world very different from the one it described, he locked himself in his room and spent his stipend on rare imported recordings from a store called the Dissery in Birmingham. To examine each sound, it was more than simply music to him. It was a way of life that despised the peaceful, secure life his parents had cherished. By the age of 16, he was a student at Stourbridge's King Edward V, 6th Grammar School. This was a proud moment for his family, accomplishment, a springboard to college, and a dignified future. However, Robert felt confined. The courses he had to take, such as Latin, and when contrasted with the blues' electric pull, mathematics seemed pointless. He described himself as a square peg in a circular opening, with just a few GCEO-level passes under his belt. At 16, he took the risky choice to drop out of school. For his parents, it wasn't merely an error, but a total betrayal of all their hard-won gains. It seemed to him to be the only path ahead. He wasn't simply dropping out of school. He was abandoning the life they had him on their agenda. Soon, later, the domestic strain reached a breaking point. Robert departed permanently at the age of 16. It was a challenging and uncertain period. Not a spectacular journey. Lacking funds, and he had nowhere to go. Slept on friends' floors, moved about a lot, and lived. He had once admired the bluesmen he liked for their nomadic lifestyle. His Maureen Wilson, his significantly older lover, provided him with emotional and monetary assistance. Together, they eventually located a modest apartment in Oise, where she kept him afloat while he pursued a seemingly unattainable dream. From 1964 to 1966, he didn't talk to his parents very often. He took on arduous physical labor tasks to make ends meet. The hardest of these was pouring tarmac for the West Midlands-based construction company, Wimpy the Tangible. He became tougher and developed the grit that would eventually be heard in his voice thanks to grind. Even when operating these. After long workdays, he spent his evenings listening to music. He joined a group in 1966. It provided him with his first taste of success. The band was known as the Band of Joy, and it quickly rose to fame in the Black Country and Birmingham. John Bonham, the band's drummer, whose Robert's soaring, wild vocals were accompanied by forceful guitar that felt electrifying. Together, they produced a noise that suggested something far larger. Robert, on stage, with his lengthy because of his dramatic demeanor and blonde hair, he was known as the wild man of the Black Country Blues. The band Joy developed a devoted local fan base, and Robert was a singular individual. However, despite their enthusiasm, the band made little money and was never signed to a record deal. They performed in crowded bars and clubs, although they frequently received meager compensation. More than beer money, it was a period of profound frustration, as well as growth. By the summer of 1968 was a turning point. Jimmy Page, the talented musician, encountered a crisis from the Yardbirds. In July, his band had recently broken up. Leaving, he has roughly $30,000 in tour commitments in the US and Scandinavia. He ran the possibility of financial ruin if he couldn't locate a new group in time. His initial Terry Reid, the singer's first option, had rejected him. Nonetheless, Reid suggested Robert Plant. At the time, at the age of 20, Robert was barely making ends meet with a weekly income of $20. For meeting him wasn't a casual affair. Page, there was an urgent need to find someone who could assist him in avoiding obscurity and bankruptcy. In 1968, on July 31st, Page drove 120 miles to see Robert play with the obscure band Hobbs Tweedle from London in front of a small group of people at a teacher training college in Birmingham. That evening, Robert's performance astounded him. He performed blues standards and Somebody to Love by Jefferson Airplanes. With a 4-octave voice and a presence that no one else could match, never had Page seen. A peculiar, almost supernatural, force seemed to emanate from Robert. On the stage, later, Page acknowledged that he believed there had to be a personal issue with him, or else some significant he would have already been signed by the band. In actuality, London bands had turned down Robert as viewed as being too odd or weighty for the general public. That evening, Page was aware he had discovered a remarkable individual. Robert went to see Page the very following day. At his Pangbourne Victorian boat home. The home was brimming with medieval Eastern art, tapestries, and occult literature, establishing the tone for what became a late-night session. Rare American blues records that Robert had brought with him included the full albums of Skip James's records, and Robert Johnson's complemented Page's own. They remained up till 4 o'clock. The morning, exchanging tunes and thoughts. One of their songs was, "Baby, I'm Going to Leave You." Robert's voice echoed so loudly that it shook the house's wooden beams. By daybreak, they had sketched down the openings of songs such as Confused and Dazed and Communication Breakdown, which would go on to make millions of dollars. Alongside Robert, Page focused on finishing the band after getting on board. Robert proposed to bring John in. At the time, Bonham was working for Tim Rose's organization and making $40 per week. The drumming of Bonham was so strong that he had been barred from certain establishments for using his bass drum to smash through, whilst Page gave him $25, simply to try out, which was almost twice his current salary, and it was successful. In order to finish the lineup, they were joined by Paul Jones, a studio musician who has played with Donovan and the Rolling Stones. Jones had played a variety of instruments with easily while attending the Royal College of Music. By 1967, as a session musician, he had earned more money than many full-time rock stars. Within 3 weeks, this new group arrived. Collectively, each member contributing unique talent, but all making less than $150 each overall. 1 week. They were prepared to take off in September of 1968. Initially, they adopted the moniker the New Yardbirds, but they had to change it after Chris Dre, a former Yardbirds beset, threatened them with legal action. Keith Moon and John Entwistle, of The Who, made a joke that led to the new name. Originally predicted that Page's new band would fail like a lead balloon. Page modified the spelling to Led Zeppelin since she enjoyed the phrase. He considered it aptly captured the combination of strength and beauty, heaviness and flight, desired the band to stand for. In 1969, Led Zeppelin's debut album did not simply enter the charts. It transformed rock music when it burst onto the scene. Forever, the band was outselling well-known acts within months of its formation, and establishing the tone that would come to characterize heavy metal. Jimmy Page had discovered Robert Plant by chance while listening to him perform Somebody to Love at a university in Birmingham. He immediately recognized the uniqueness of Plant's voice. Plant's debut album had raw wails, deep growls, and high notes that made the song powerful in a way that had never been heard before. It turned into the spark that influenced later bands such as Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, and Black Sabbath. Led Zeppelin was hailed as the new rock giants before they had even completed their first world tour, and the course of music was permanently altered. The focal point of this ascent was Plant. Robert. Fans were unable to comprehend the vision he created on stage. Forget his golden hair cascades over his exposed chest, and as he gained notoriety as the Golden God for his lofty, self-assured posture. He did more than just sing. With vigor, he threw back his head, snapped his fingers, and struck audacious stances that made every an unforgettable performance. His appearance came to represent rock in general. A music journal even bestowed upon him the unique title of Chestor in 1974, claiming that his chest was the best in rock. Later, Plant chuckled about it, stating that he, though uncertain about his own chest, he felt honored. His vibrant, glistening jewelry, tight jeans, and shirts only enhanced the picture. The numerous other frontmen, including Mick Jagger and Jim, were influenced by his manner. Morrison and contributed to the definition of rock stardom. It was the moment that cemented their historical position. Led Zeppelin IV was released in 1971. Over 37 copies of the album were sold. It is among the best-selling albums ever made, having sold millions of copies worldwide. The focal point of it was Stairway. Despite being more than 8 minutes long, the song To Heaven became one of the most cherished songs in history of rock. Although the band declined to make it available as a single, fans purchased a full album merely to listen to it. Just within the United States, it was 24 times platinum certification, indicates that over 24 million copies were sold. The figure surpassed 38 million worldwide. Meanwhile, their notoriety was getting up. Even Plant's private life was evolving. He did so on November 9, 1968. Wed Moore and Wilson, London's Roundhouse, hosted their wedding celebration. Were the recently established LED, it may have been the most exclusive concert premiere when Zeppelin appeared. Unthinkable. In 1966, Plant and Morin had met at a Georgie Fame concert. Additionally, as his career rose from tiny clubs to international fame and established herself as a continuous presence throughout his life, on their second album, he even penned the song Thank You for Her. They had 3 kids together, and while Plant was on tour, Moran kept things stable at home. In those early years, in the midst of rock stardom, their marriage provided Plant with a unique feeling of normalcy. However, road life was not without controversy. The so-called Mudshark incident occurred in July 1969, at the Edgewater in Seattle. Vanilla Fudge's Carmine Eyes, who subsequently, according to his account, members of Vanilla Fudge and Led Zeppelin had a startling run-in with a fish taken from the bay and a 17-year-old groupie. The narrative gained more. Frank Zappa brought it to light on a live CD recorded in 1971. It was 4 years rejected as a myth. But years later, the confirmation solidified it as one of the most bizarre tales in rock history. Passed since the incident took place during Zeppelin's first significant U.S. tour. It was all the more shocking given that the group was still attempting to build a solid reputation. Plant's personal sentiments on over time. The excesses of the rock lifestyle changed. In 1975, he was troubled by Los Angeles's burgeoning groupie culture, particularly the way it attracts younger and younger ladies. In the song Sick Again, he sang about this and shared his aggravation and melancholy. He expressed his disenchantment with the environment in interviews, stating that what was previously thrilling now felt incorrect and superficial. By the middle of the 1980s, he publicly referred to the rock star. His rough and cruel way of living demonstrated how far he had come from the extravagance that characterized a large portion of Zeppelin's persona. Plant gave LED depth as well. Many people were surprised by Zeppelin's music. He shared his passion for reading and mythology into his poems, frequently referencing the writings of J.R.R. Tolkien and Norse mythology. Ramble On and other songs made allusion to Mordor and the Battle of Evermore, used visuals that fans could relate to, drawing significantly from Tolkien's world, straight to figures such as Galadriel and Frodo. Additionally, he used Norse songs like Immigrant, in which he sang about Viking conquests, include Falsehoods, Valhalla. As a result, Zeppelin's music gained depth and intricacy that made them stand out, distinct from other bands. When they performed at Madison Square Garden in 1973, the band had to deal with one of the greatest mysteries in rock. Till 1:20 a.m. and 7:30 p.m. approximately, $200,000 in cash was taken from their safe deposit on July 29. Box at the Drake Hotel. Their earnings from the concerts were represented by the money. Richard Cole, tour manager, found only passports in the box when he went to pay the film crew, revealing the robbery. Even if the NYPD is fully, despite a thorough inquiry and report, the money was never retrieved and nobody was captured. One of the most well-known thefts in rock history is still this one, and it was also mentioned in The Song Remains the Same, the band's concert DVD. Another significant turning point was Plant's development as a songwriter. In the beginning, his lyrics were frequently criticized for being repetitious and simplistic. However, by 1970, he had begun writing more introspective and intimate songs after Led Zeppelin's release. Such tracks are The Way and Either Brawn or Stomp revealed a different side of himself that was full of tales and depth of feeling. Jimmy Page's encouragement helped Plant become more self-assured and created a style that blended themes of mythology with introspection. Then came the terrible traffic tragedy on August 4, 1975. While he and his family were on vacation, Plant's vehicle lost control. The collision caused Morin to sustain many injuries, including a cracked head, while he sustained a broken ankle and elbow. Their offspring, thankfully, they only suffered minor bruises.